The applause thundered through the executive boardroom as Daniel accepted another prestigious promotion. He smiled, shook hands, and thanked everyone with quiet confidence. But as he stepped out of the room, his fingers tightened around the award. Something inside him refused to celebrate. If you've ever chased a dream, stay with Daniel for a moment. What follows will change the way he sees success forever. Every morning began before sunrise. Daniel exercised, reviewed reports, answered emails, and walked into another demanding day of meetings, negotiations, and decisions. Long after the city lights filled the skyline, he was still working. Every completed goal was quickly replaced by an even bigger one. His reputation continued to grow. Colleagues admired his discipline, executives trusted his leadership, and new opportunities appeared one after another. Each promotion proved he was succeeding, yet every celebration faded sooner than the one before. Daniel moved into a luxurious apartment overlooking the glowing city skyline. Every detail reflected the success he had worked so hard to achieve. Yet every evening, when the door closed behind him, the silence inside the apartment felt heavier than the noise outside. Certain that another achievement would finally satisfy him, Daniel accepted an even greater leadership position. His schedule became more demanding, his responsibilities multiplied, and personal time slowly disappeared. Every sacrifice seemed worthwhile because another milestone always waited ahead. Outside the office, life quietly drifted away. Messages went unanswered, invitations were politely declined, friends stopped asking as often. His calendar overflowed with meetings, but meaningful moments became increasingly rare. Surrounded by people every day, Daniel had never felt more alone. One evening, after delivering another successful presentation, Daniel stood alone before the illuminated skyline. Everything he had once dreamed of was finally within reach. Yet the emptiness inside him was louder than the city below. For the first time, he wondered if he had spent years chasing success while leaving something far more important behind. Daniel refused to slow down. He convinced himself that one more achievement would finally quiet the emptiness. He accepted a high-profile corporate project, poured every ounce of energy into it, and led the team to another remarkable success. The applause returned, but the feeling disappeared before he even reached home. Awards soon lined the shelves of his office. Industry leaders praised his vision, and his name became known across the company. Each accomplishment looked impressive to everyone else, yet every new trophy reminded Daniel that something inside him still remained untouched. One afternoon, rushing between meetings, Daniel noticed a group of co-workers laughing together over lunch. They weren't celebrating promotions or bonuses. They were simply enjoying each other's company. He paused for a moment, then continued walking, unable to forget the peace he had just witnessed. Months later, Daniel was introduced as the company's newest executive leader. Cameras flashed. The audience stood and applauded. He thanked them with the same confident smile he had worn for years, but beneath that smile, he felt completely disconnected from the moment everyone else believed should have been the happiest day of his life. That night, he placed the newest award beside countless others in his apartment. He stared at the collection for several minutes before quietly sitting down. Every trophy represented another victory, but none could answer the question that now echoed through his mind. Who am I without all of this? The next morning, Daniel stood before senior executives to deliver one of the most important presentations of his career. He began confidently, then suddenly stopped. The words disappeared, silence filled the room. He lowered his notes, apologized softly, and walked out. Years of chasing success had finally caught up with him. For the first time in years, Daniel stepped away from his relentless routine. Quiet walks through parks and along the waterfront replaced boardrooms and deadlines, without constant noise surrounding him. He could no longer ignore the question he had spent years avoiding. What was the purpose of everything he had achieved? Center, there, he met an elderly volunteer whose face carried a quiet joy that no award could match. As they talked, the man spoke about helping others, not for recognition, but because changing even one life gave everyday meaning. Daniel listened more carefully than he had listened in years. The conversation stayed with him long after he left. Instead of filling every free hour with work, Daniel began mentoring young professionals. Watching someone else grow because of his guidance brought a deep sense of fulfillment that no promotion had ever given him. His routine slowly changed. Work remained important, but it no longer consumed every part of his life. He made time for family, friendships, quiet reflection, and serving people without expecting anything in return. The more balanced his life became, the lighter his heart felt. Back at the office, Daniel still pursued excellence, but his reasons had changed. He focused on building people instead of simply building results. Success was no longer measured only by profits or titles, but by the positive difference his leadership made in the lives around him. One morning, he looked across the city skyline as the sun rose above the buildings. The same view that once reminded him of endless ambition now reminded him of endless opportunity to live with purpose. For the first time in a long while, peace replaced the emptiness that had followed every achievement. When another promotion was offered, Daniel accepted it with gratitude instead of desperation. His title no longer defined his worth. Success had become a tool to serve others rather than a destination to satisfy himself, and that single change transformed everything. Listened before he spoke, encouraged others without seeking credit, and celebrated their growth as sincerely as his own achievements. People no longer followed him because of his title alone. They followed him because they felt genuinely valued. The atmosphere around his leadership began to shift. Healthy ambition remained, but constant competition gave way to collaboration. Success was no longer about standing above everyone else. It became about helping everyone move forward together with purpose. Months later, Daniel walked back into the same boardroom where he had once accepted a promotion that left him feeling empty. The room looked exactly the same, but he didn't. Looking around, he finally understood that fulfillment had never been waiting behind another achievement. That evening, Daniel stood beneath the city skyline once more. The towering buildings no longer represented an endless race to prove his worth. They reminded him that success becomes meaningful only when it serves a purpose greater than personal recognition. His career continued to flourish, but it no longer came at the cost of everything else. He invested time in relationships, mentored others with genuine care, and found joy in living according to his values. Achievement remained part of his life, but it was no longer the center of it. As the first light of morning spread across the city, Daniel walked toward another workday with quiet confidence instead of restless ambition. He had discovered that success alone could never fill the deepest place in the human heart. If Daniel's journey spoke to you, subscribe, like, and share so more people can discover that purpose, not success alone, is what truly brings lasting fulfillment.